to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first appointment this evening is Rebecca Maytag.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? As far as I know, you asked me to come back if there were any updates on the tent for the library. I now have 3 quotes. The lowest quote is from Special Events of New England, and it's a different kind of tent. It's not a pole tent. And I'm trying to get other, maybe the friends can help us support it, but I'm trying to reach out to people now to get support for this. So that's the only group I can think of right now that may be able to fund part or all of it. And then I just found out about the ARPA funds. I don't know if you've heard any more about that, but apparently grants will start becoming available at the end of May with the new stimulus funds. So I don't know what's going to happen with that yet. Has anyone heard anything about
The grants? No, I
the
don't know.
ARPA funds?
They haven't approved that through Washington yet, I don't think.
Yeah, it's the first bill, the first stimulus bill. So
First 2 trillion that we don't have.
yeah, so the New Hampshire State Library is expecting to have grants applications available, I think the beginning of May. And you should know about that as well, because those are, and I don't know the extent of them for libraries, but I think if they're bigger grants to do more, like increasing space or changing the HVAC, or, that may be available to us, in May in a grant. So you should know about that. I'm just bringing that up as a separate issue because I don't know if they're going to cover anything for COVID.
I've been thinking about this all week. I don't have any issues with you doing a tent per se. Where I'm hung up on is COVID isn't new. We went through the whole budget process. Last year you came to us for the $5,000 for the Wi-Fi, and that was because of COVID. It wasn't planned, everything else, and we went along with it. Now, with this, I don't have a problem if you want to do it in your budget, or if you want to apply for a grant for it. I have a hard time if we're going to spend this as a select board, because I'd like to remind my fellow board members that we did sign an IT contract worth $30,000 that really wasn't set in the budget, and it didn't include any projects. And as of last week, we just found out that we have $25,000 worth of books we're going to be buying that wasn't funded as well. And the money is going to get real tight pretty soon. I don't have a problem with you getting a tent or applying for a grant. I think it should be found within your budget, not the budget of the town, because it's going to be pretty tight.
Which is a very good segue, as a matter of fact. Go ahead.
Oh, well, we brought it to you because I had talked to Rich, and he thought initially that there were COVID funds. That was the reason why it was brought to the board initially. So that's where it started.
I don't think we have any new funding now, right?
And as far as, I haven't seen anything with
We don't have
funding
anything yet to know what
yet.
Correct.
we'll have or what we'll spend it on.
But that was the reason. It was the COVID-19 funding. And since you brought up the Wi-Fi, that was through the Gopher grant. That wasn't any additional grant budget funding. So
Like I said, I just don't see the money in the budget. I don't. Even at a low cost of $5,000, because it's going to be tight because of everything else we're going through.
yeah, I understand that, but I did bring it to you as to tell you about it, that we're thinking about doing this, as well as, since the rec center was doing it, having a tent this summer. We were going for the same size as the rec center. And you know, seeing if there were any COVID-19 funds coming down the pike or anything that you might know about.
The answer to that question is no, unless you got us something that.
So when do you need to let that company know?
Probably in the next couple of weeks, so we'll figure that out.
I got a suggestion. I got two things for you. One, you talk to Taylor Rental in Haverhill, Mass. That's one of the people that the Kingston Days Committee approached, and they actually saved a few $100s by going with them. They're spending $6,900 for what, 3 or 4 tents for 3 or 4 days. And Taylor Rental was the best price, and they are very interested in developing a relationship with the town of Kingston because they never had an opportunity before. So you might have an option. But I want to bring up, the library trustees have returned 2 months of unspent salaries for the new position that hasn't been filled yet. Right? And that was $27,000, a little bit more than that for 2 months. I personally would not have an objection if you took the money out of that account for this project. Not for anything else, but for this, because you would have another $15,000 coming back to us in March because the position's still not filled. So if you needed to take $4,000 from that line, if the board wanted to approve it coming out of your unexpended payroll funds, different. That's my suggestion. I have no idea what my colleagues think about that as an option. But it meets your requirement, Kevin, about coming out of your current budget as opposed to coming out of the general fund. And if for some reason we get COVID funds that could apply to, we could reallocate accordingly, and or if you come up with more creative things that you could do at the library to use some COVID funds, we'd go from there. But we don't know what we're going to get as yet. I guess that's the bottom line.
And we're still in the exploratory phase, but I appreciate your suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to hold off as long as you can, and hopefully, what was it, 2 months ago they passed that? You know, maybe they'll eventually get around to giving it to people who need it. But I think we can certainly look at that. I think we just need to double check to make sure we can do that.
Can what? Reallocate those funds out of the payroll?
Yeah, from payroll to something like that.
I would bet we could. I think the selectmen have the authority to do that. But then again, but you need to look into, I think the trustees have the authority to do that. I think we've developed a nice relationship with the library the last few years where unexpended funds have been coming back to the town. That didn't used to happen. And so kudos to Rebecca and to the trustees for developing that relationship with the Board of Selectmen. I think it's pretty good. So that's why I think we can, but we should check on it. I agree with you. We'll do that on our end. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Rebecca.
it.
Okay, next up, Fire Chief Graham Pellerin.
So the ambulance fund passed, that we can now take money out of that for ambulance supplies and other issues. The ambulance has to be done in a public meeting, that's why I'm here tonight. So you'll see in front of you, or at some point tonight, you'll see in front of you a purchase order for $9,011. That is for the preventative maintenance and replacement of batteries to be done on both of our life packs, the Lucas CPR device, and both power cots in the ambulance. I did not do that last year to save some money, especially with COVID, but we have 4 batteries at $500 a piece that need to be replaced for just the power cots alone. So I figured that using the preventative maintenance program, since we skipped last year, it'd probably be a good idea this year.
Any questions?
The only other thing I want to bring up is, obviously, you guys have seen the work being done at the new station site, but we have a groundbreaking ceremony on April 17th at 11 a.m. So we have invited the governor and newspapers. We'll be putting on Facebook. We will probably be sending you personal invites, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention and make it public.
How the front down go?
The train burn went great. No issues, nobody got hurt. We got 7 evolutions out of it. So I would go on.
It's amazing how much light on that corner of Rock Rim, and now that all those trees are down. I mean, it is noticeable, really.
So still obviously a lot of work behind the scenes with the cistern and well and all that good stuff, but it's definitely making progress, at least site work.
It's a nice piece of land now. I like that the trees were saved on the property line. It looks good.
We did have to remove two additional trees on the back side of the property. Once Vines got in there and started digging and laying out the building, they realized that it was going to be directly in a retaining pond for groundwater, so we had to take those out. But we'll be replacing several trees on the property lines in different areas, so doing what we can.
Excellent.
Anything for me?
Not yet.
Thank you.
Before we go to public comment, I'm just gonna, our road agent is here to speak with us, so, no? Highway agent? Sorry.
I'm all set. I'm gonna move forward with trying to just rest the board. I've talked to some of the members here. I'll be bringing a proposal hopefully next week for some computer upgrades at the shed, highway department. Somehow I got left out of the discussions with Block 5. Wasn't invited. I can't wait 2 years like it's in the schedule to do some of the things they need to do. I'm going to be hiring a full-time administrative assistant here in the next month or two, and I need something other than abacus and tin cans to talk back and forth. So I'll be asking you guys to spend some money. If it's going to come out of my budget, it's going to come out of my budget, but we need some upgrades. So that's the only thing I got. I don't have numbers, working on it. And the only reason I'm here, I see driveways along, so that length, I'm just curious.
Before you leave, I talked to him about Sands Lane fence, and he basically wants to know what we want, if we're happy with, like, posts down through there with the cable, just to separate the land. Is that all we're looking for?
Yeah, because I did notice there's now a snowmobile trailer that one road left, the snowmobile trailer got added. So it's going to be happening sooner
So
than
are we
later.
okay with the post and the
Yep.
cable?
That's cheap. That's the cheapest way to get out of it, that delineation property line. Tell me the date you want it done.
Yesterday.
Yeah, and take the stuff that's there, just push it to our property.
I'm not touching private property.
Well, we got to do something with it.
Well, I will under your direction, but I suggest we not touch private property.
What we were talking about is putting the cable in and maybe leaving one space big enough where they have to ask somebody to get it out, or
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but there's at least 2 things that are going to come up. But the snowmobile trailer, brand spanking new, I wasn't there last week.
last couple of days.
Sure. No problem.
Further public comment?
Abby, did you have any public comment? She's muted. I guess not.
Okay. Old business, sale of town-owned land.
I talked to Dennis Quintel today. He called Mr. Nichols, and Mr. Nichols said there's no way he could get to it anytime this year, at best the fall. I reminded Mr. Quintel that he came with me and Rich to look at the property line, and he agreed it's kind of needs to be done expeditiously, so he is calling Charlie Zilch to see if Charlie Zilch has time to do it. And then he'll just, go between Zilch or Quintel to get, I said at the very least, I get the rest of it could be done later, but we need to do something with that parcel on Fifth Street, and he agreed. So he's gonna talk to Charlie Zilch and get back to me. Have we heard back from the planning board about Hillsbury Pasture?
As far as they think that's deeded to the town for a purpose.
Right.
And
I guess we
should-
have to pull the deed then.
And we shouldn't get rid of it because it's got a drainage right away on it and easement.
Right, I thought we had talked about that, it was not available for sale.
Right.
If that's the case, then we need to notify the abutter that they destroyed town land and they need to restore it to what it was, remove their driveway, and put some plantings on there.
And restore the town boundary that took out.
Yes,
They actually took a boundary marker out?
they lifted it up.
That's illegal, isn't it?
It is.
It is.
So then is it the will of the board, at least Pillsbury, to stop that and then we could send a letter to that homeowner?
I think until we get the process down, we get these 2-3 under our belt,
Okay.
and then we'll
All right, well, I think then the next step is to notify that town. So maybe I would say a written letter from the town to that person that they need to restore the boundary marker and the property.
And remove all the stuff from it.
Yeah, return it to its natural state.
Okay.
Are you volunteering to draft that letter?
Looking at Susan, but she's purposely ignoring me, I think. I would work with Susan to get such a letter and it'll come before the board to review it before it gets sent out.
Okay, next up is junkyards. Dawn and I went around today, looked at our legal junkyards, which all were up to standard, and then we went and looked at our illegal junkyards, which were not. I was very impressed by the placement of chairs that people were doing in front of the license plates. You couldn't quite see if it was a registered vehicle or not, so kudos to them for that. So yeah, we have about 4 pieces of property that we need to send letters on that are in excess of 5 unregistered vehicles, just a house made out of tarps. I don't know what that was, but yeah. So we got some letters to generate, but all our legal junkyards are good. The history book. I haven't opened it yet. Had your name on it.
We met with Bob Thursday and told him that the contract they gave us was just not acceptable, that it had too many variables. He was supposed to be getting something that was a little more self-explanatory.
Okay, so it's $7,215 to the publisher or the editor for her efforts. Back me up on reading that correctly. And then the total for the book for 750 books is going to be $25,650 total. But this agreement, we need to put a deposit of $18,000 for the printing of the books.
18 plus the 7,000?
Correct.
25. And then we'll still owe another 7,000. Okay.
Jesus Christ.
I did talk to Cindy.
About the,
Yeah, and she said, well, no, it's not the Kingston Day. She said she would be able to take care of it. She'll take it appropriately through funds. So whatever contract you have, send it to Cindy. She's aware it's coming and she'll find a source for it.
yeah, I talked to her too. That's basically what she said.
Okay, so you guys gave me the authority to sign this last week. I
Yes.
think it's been clarified enough that I would be comfortable signing it unless anybody has any objection.
You gotta pay the 25,000. Who did that?
You should take a monopoly money.
With that, we urge everybody to pre-buy your history books.
Those expensive history books.
It's gonna be an amazing book.
I can't wait to see it.
I've read the majority of it. I did a little few. I've been through through the majority of it. It's just, like I said, it takes all the bits and pieces of everything you've heard over the years and kind of puts it in order and perspective.
All right, next up, 44 Main Street. We had that notice of violation that we granted. Anybody better? Yeah, I did see they had a lay down yard on 125 that they were putting their equipment on.
Making progress.
We're making progress, but there's a lot of construction
Debris.
material there, not material, but like ladders. You know, a lot of that stuff, I don't know how picky we want to get, but it definitely looks better than it did.
It does.
Susan, you want to just have that as a follow-up item for 2 weeks from now? And I'll try and look at that. New business. The landfill stuff, it was either I made here or have that ready for you tonight, so I came instead. Next time. The driveway permits. So this came up in the inspector's meeting, and Ellen forwarded the RSA, and she felt still would basically make the Board of Selectmen report to the planning board if we took over driveways.
That's what this looked like when I read it. It looks like they really have the authority to do it, but they don't issue permits, no. Right? I mean, they can have it on a Mylar, but I don't get it.
Technically, I work for the planning board when I do driveway permits. I remind them that I only work for one board and it's this board. But
Right. But we can direct you to work with them on this project?
you can, you might not have much luck.
Why would not, I mean, you do everything else so well, why would that not work?
I'm not getting in the fight between the planning board and selectmen. Very simple. For me, the law is very simple, it's spelled out. But whatever you guys decide.
So does the planning board, they have delegated you up to this point to issue the permits, but you don't go back to them with every permit, do you?
Every time there's a question, I have zero authority to make any decisions.
Okay.
We use any common sense. Planning board doesn't allow that to happen. So technically, I do all the time because I fire because they can't fire. But common sense prevails usually in what I do. But technically, I work for the planning board.
Why doesn't the Board of Selectmen just appoint you as their agent with the planning board to issue driveway permits? You still would only report to one board.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty simple. It was an RSA, basically the planning board gives up the driveways. Planning board still has their function during the planning board hearings for driveways, approval of driveways and new subdivisions. But anyways.
Such regulations may delegate administrative duties, including actual issuance of permits, to a highway agent, Board of Selectmen, or other qualified official or body. So if they delegate it to us, it doesn't mean we work for them, it just means they've shifted the responsibility to
Right,
us.
and then that way you got one board of selectmen and also the code enforcement, basically. The higher your enforcement, code enforcement guy goes through right up to you. I just thought it was easy. I'm not fighting anymore, but
Thoughts?
I don't know why we can't take it under, our power, and I actually talked to the state about it last week about the septic issue that we talked about, that plans, whether we can, say we have to show a driveway on the plan, and they said absolutely, just so it's in that's an easier thing to do if we're in control of it, because if we're not, we have to send it to planning board, and then they probably have to put it on the ballot.
That's a regulation, so no.
No, they can vote on
I
it.
believe, all the health stuff though is the ordinance, I believe, that's regulation.
I've talked to the majority of the engineers, and they said they have no problem showing an existing driveway, you know, if it's within 100 feet or whatever it would be, shown on our plan,
So that still falls under the jurisdiction of the planning board then, right?
unless we pull the power away from it.
Well, they would delegate it to us.
Yeah.
Do you want us, why don't you put your toe in the water tomorrow night and see what their reception is?
See how they feel. Put your toe in the water.
I mean, I just think it makes more sense for it to be under one roof, but if they don't feel that, then as an independently elected board, I guess we,
They can't make a decision, is that the problem? They don't want the responsibility for it.
I don't know that anything has come from the planning board per se. This was, Ellen was at the inspector's meeting, she felt it was conflicting, which I can see where she looks at it.
Yes.
When I took it to planning board, their biggest thing was why. You know, why do you want to take control of it? And then Ellen said that she didn't think the RSAs, or didn't know if the RSA was allowed, so that's why she looked those up.
Well, it does allow, but the
Yeah.
problem is they need to, if someone doesn't meet the requirements, we gotta reject it for that driveway and then it'll go to the ZBA or wherever. Because it's not in compliance, but they gotta to me, they should take responsibility where that driveway goes. If the RSA says they gotta have a driveway on their plans, that makes it easy, doesn't it? They should know what they are.
Well, I would think that they would be okay with making the rules, and especially for subdivisions and things like that, they can make all the rules they want, but we are still the enforcement arm, so if they want the the regulatory, or I guess we're the regulatory aspect, they're the administrative side of it. I don't know. You mind just seeing what the planning board's, as the board's feeling is, and proceed accordingly. Committee liaison reports, I'll go first. You'll see in your packets, so Tori had made up a spreadsheet of all the permits. The one, I think everybody can copy this.
Yeah, they got the revised one. You have the other one with the notes on it.
Got my chicken scratch one. One of the bigger changes we discussed is the 30,000 square foot plus commercial, a new building, an addition, or remodel. It was fairly or everybody agreed that unless there's plans for that building, we can't really even begin to assess fees against it. It could be anything. It could be an 800,000 square foot building, we can't assign fees to that. So that would be similar to what was done with All American Assisted Living, where there was, kind of a souped up technical review committee where, we're gonna need this person to come in and do inspections, we're gonna have to do X number of inspections, and it was all based on plans for the building itself. A lot of these are going to go up because what isn't really captured here was it was a lot of just, the number of inspections that the inspector said to do. But there's still an administrative side of it that isn't being covered in this. And especially as we integrate more technology into the program, there's going to be additional costs on that. And, it varies pretty substantially from town to town, but by and large, we're pretty low on a lot of this, and we're not really covering our costs. But rather than doing this every 3 to 5 years, this will get us caught up and then kind of prepared for things moving forward. One of the biggest things was assessing a higher reinspection fee. So right now, an inspection fee is $25 for electric or plumbing. As I've stated to this board, I'm strongly in favor of bringing that up to 50 because we're lower than anyone on that. As far as a re-inspection fee, it would be $75 because that's something where they come out and they don't have the proper paperwork or they're not prepared for an inspection, and so, you know, it's just basically their fault. So that it's slightly punitive by $25. And then the no permit fee, one of my notes was ×5 of what the actual permit is.
For penalty?
Yeah, because right now people just, it's double the permit fee. Well, when the permit fee is $35, they're like, oh, okay, if they even get caught. So, I don't know. Any
What's
questions?
that one page? You have several.
I have my notes.
Oh, okay.
We have the updated forms, I guess, right? Without his close.
Yeah, the other one's the same, only it's got his notes that Tori incorporated.
I know you touched on it. What are going to be the penalties?
It'd be basically the permit fee ×5.
So if the permit fee is $50, the penalty is $250.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. That's,
Obviously, you know, if it's a homeowner doing the work, you know, Robert and the other inspectors, they go out of their way to educate them, and if it's just an admission by ignorance,
a true omission.
yeah. But we have our frequent flyers who, you know, love the thrill of the game, so we'll make it even more fun for them. We'll higher stakes.
Big thing with penalties is we have to be prepared to back them up. You know, if we double a fee and they don't pay it, but they keep working, what are we gonna do? You know, that's where we have to be prepared to jump in.
And do a cease and
Because
desist.
we have a lot of people like that in town that just say, no matter how many times we talk to them, they keep doing what they wanna do.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say that Tom, in the electrical inspections, has started assessing fines. He's called me first, just to, you know, just follow the guidelines that we had previously, and they've all been paid. But, yeah, when we institute this, we will be following through on it.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of numbers, so if you have questions, catch me afterwards.
Do you want us to make a motion on this now? Are we ready? No.
I don't think we're ready for that. I think it's just, I want to keep you guys up to date on where we're at.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the big thing that we did.
Where do these put us? It still seems low.
Baby steps. Let's get this in and then.
Well, I don't want to resolve people, but I don't know about if baby steps the right way. We should set the price, and it's the price for the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, what the inspector said is that every town's from here to here.
No, I know.
The range is just unbelievable, and I found that with septic, that when I've been checking people, is that we're very low. We're gonna double the septic fee, and we'll still be one of the lowest.
Well, so I'm saying, I think we gotta set, you know, I think we should look at the range, but set it.
We are, and
You know, I don't know. That's what I'm just trying to figure out. What do these put us at for the prices compared to the others?
I mean, it's a delicate balance because, yeah, you can set the prices astronomically high and people are just.
Oh, they're not gonna do it. I get it. I don't want to do that. This isn't about making money, but it's also at least covering our costs and
Yeah, and this is going to cover our costs, and it covers the increased compensation for the inspectors to go up and do these inspections, because to have a master electrician or master plumber for $50 is pretty cheap.
yeah.
it's also gonna have a little buffer for the things they do that doesn't get covered in a permit, like, there's tremendous amount.
Well, I'm just saying, like we talked about, we're going to eventually go to some sort of software system. This should pay for that software system.
Essentially, what
Because that's gonna be a
what I estimated it to be was a 25% administration fee on top of the inspections. And so, again, it's so all over the map. I mean, some of them are based on square footage, which in other towns, like new construction, you know, these are, what we focused mainly on was the electrical, plumbing, mechanical, those kind of things. Robert felt where we were at with our building inspection fees that we were reasonable, and in looking at other towns, I did feel that we were there. But yeah, I mean, the intent here is to cover the administration portion of it, and not to make this a moneymaker, but at least to support the inspections that the town's putting in.
I know you've been working on this, and I appreciate the work. It is, when you start looking at it, sure, your eyes start going cross-eyed. I just want to cover so that we get to that point where we have software, where it makes it easier for everyone, but at least that cost is captured in it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sympathetic to people, you know, you're remodeling a house or building a house, everybody's got their hand out trying to, you know, choose you on something, but spare me your crocodile tears when you're putting up a $450,000 house, so. So yeah, it's just, we're trying to find the balance. That's all I got. Anybody else for the news on?
Budget committee met on Wednesday night, and I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to it. It was an enthusiastic group. It was a full house here. We haven't had a full budget committee in I don't know how long. So, you know, it's just to get to know everyone, know what to expect, and you know, we won't be meeting again until September, I think. But anyways, it was pretty good.
We spoke about Zoom for Conservation Commission and all the subcommittees. We want to start having more meetings. So we'll look at maybe getting Zoom for Conservation Commission.
What's the issue with using the town and not having their own?
What they're running into is that they've got several subcommittees and having more meetings, and we can only do one at a time. Plus, it's cumbersome. They don't like to have to keep asking me, so they just want to get their own account and run it themselves. They wanted to make sure that's legal. And I don't see why not.
Legal as long as they post it.
I was gonna say, there's publicly noticed meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different
But like
account.
the book committee uses the general Zoom platform, and the only thing, there's no fee for that, but it limits meetings to an hour.
Right.
So we just sign off and sign back on, but it's free.
And so they may do that, I don't know, but
And
it's
then they don't need to do that.
It's pretty cheap, I think. It's
$15
like,
a month.
It's about $100 or something for the year.
yeah, it's cheap money for. I think Susan she's the admin for it. It's a lot of work for her. The budget committee the other night had one person on Zoom, so she had to from home access it. It would be good to at least have a second.
You can delegate some of that. I mean, you can have someone sign up and then teach each committee person.
yeah, well, all I do is I have to start the meeting and then I hand it off, so I don't have to really do a lot.
But the second one wouldn't be a bad thing. And you know what? If conservation does it, then the history could use that one probably, and then you don't have to get booted off after an hour.
Are we never going to have public meetings in public anymore?
I was gonna say that this is probably gonna go away.
It is 1 year though, or whatever, 6 months.
We go through the worst of it, I think it's
Yeah.
not behind us, but
Fourth variant.
what's that? I'm sorry.
That's not what we're hearing, with what's coming down the pike.
It's
But,
uncertain.
all right, well, these meetings probably have more than 2 hours. Can they get a free one and then just re-sign up?
Yeah, you can always, you know, if you get kicked off, you start up, but again, just,
I don't know, it's penny wise and pound foolish, I guess. $15 a month.
but I'll tell Abby it's fine if they want to set up their own, however they decide to do it, right? She was on Zoom tonight, but she's left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where that goes. If the state is still going to allow Zoom meetings for everything, or
Well, should be restricted to just something to do with the Conservation Commission, right?
yeah, I mean, if it's internal meetings, but
Yeah, subcommittee meetings is something else. I mean, it's not the same as, no decisions can be made. they have to go to the full, the regular Conservation Commission meeting to make motions and make decisions. So technically, subcommittees are working sessions, so they don't need to be on public. Now, if they have individuals that are not there and want to zoom into the subcommittee meeting, that's a different issue, in which case get a free one and then get off after an hour and reboot out again. They could do that too. I mean, I guess I don't see COVID for the next few years, so few months, yeah, I see it in a few months, but I don't feel that strongly. I'm assuming they have money in their budget, right?
Yes.
They have a couple accounts with a lot of money in it, maybe they can find it one of those accounts.
Well, they did. They said they had the money in their budget.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay,
Oh, community website. I did go to Kingston Days. They're still trying to do a lot of what they've done. They seem to have enthusiasm to do that. But Kevin, I think, is going to really help a lot with the cow patty. That's going to be huge. You and Buttercup. And so I told them that's predominantly going to be where their biggest source of funding will be from. And they set a budget for about, I think, $25,000. So it was more reasonable than the whole 40, whatever that's still available. So,
If you do have pictures of Buttercup, care to forward to me so we can use it in press releases or whatever.
I
I'd love
also,
to get a picture out there,
I'll see what I can find.
I also,
So give Buttercup and maybe a sheet for second place.
yeah, we're gonna try to.
I think we should get a pig scramble,
First and second place.
Hopefully the deeds will be ready by the end of the week.
I also met
Are we
with,
just signing one of them?
No, I went and got signatures today, so that they were transcribed on there.
What do you mean to sign?
okay, I have one other thing to bring up. Hey, you always ask me, but you're looking at the internet. I also met with our fire chief. We've got the contract is done. You should have a copy. I sent it all out to all of you, so for your review. We can talk about it later in non-public. And a number of things that the chief and I talked about. One thing was to try to bring the committee liaison meetings up further forward in the meeting so that other department heads would have an opportunity to share and listen and talk earlier in the meeting. Just throwing that out just for your information and for us to discuss at a later point in time.
Okay.
Okay?
The job description for the code enforcement officer. It's in your packets.
I thought that looked really good.
I would just question one thing. On number 6, the media with some restrictions. You don't want the person speaking on behalf of the board.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we should, which one?
Number 6, I don't think the person, whoever we hire, we want them speaking on behalf of the board.
Where is it?
So what are you saying? Strike the media?
I would. I think the board should be the voice to the media.
Okay, got it.
Mine's just one thing. For number 5, I would put, works with owners of approved plans, subcontractors, the highway department, and the MS4 committee. Because large majority of this is gonna be site plans that we've already approved, stormwater that we've already approved. And then just a order of things, I would move number 1 and 2 and put them after number 5. Just because the primary role of this is gonna be handling those duties first. So we just wanna,
So 3 should be 1, 4 should be 2, 5 should be 3, then 1 should be 4, 2 should be 5, and then we get to 6.
correct.
So 4 should be moved way down in the event that we need him on an emergency basis. Is that what you're saying?
No, not way down, it's not way down.
That could be, 4 is number 2. 1 is number 3. 2 is number 4. 3 is number 5.
You just confused
Here,
me.
I'll just hand, I will hand this to you.
Yeah, you said 1 and 2 coming in after number 5. So that means
Seven
number
and
3
three.
and 4 are 1 and 2.
3 is number 1.
Here.
Right.
4 is number 2.
That's why I understood what you just said. It didn't sound right.
Didn't we talk about at least putting basic computer knowledge on there as a skill?
Yeah, we did. I don't see it.
Define basic.
Well, I would say Microsoft Office at least.
I would have thought that, but I couldn't pull it on my phone.
Okay. You gotta be able to get on
I would at least say Microsoft Office.
that. Well, let get on that.
You know, I don't define it as much as you want or as little as you want. I think we at least got a list of computer skills.
That has PowerPoint and Excel.
I don't think I'd say basic, I'd say computer skills necessary.
On
I'm not.
the job.
You
Computer skills
can't, you
necessary.
can't have a job of any kind today without computer skills.
Right. That's why I wouldn't say basic. I mean, if you're gonna say computer skills, I'd say computer skills are must.
Appropriate computer skills, maybe.
To
That sounds good.
for the job. Yeah, I like that. I think we just have to list on them.
So you want somewhere under knowledge, skills, and abilities?
Yeah.
So we're-
Computer skills necessary
To perform the job.
to perform the job.
Or require
Effectively
having your own
perform
job, they
duties.
can do it for you.
To effectively perform duties of the job.
Anything else? All right, adoption of roads. It's light quick subject.
Yeah, that was another one that,
This all came about because of Tucker Road. It was just for information. You said it has to go with the
well, I think I learned more about roads than I ever wanted to know from this particular piece of paper. So if you're before 1969, you can stay the way the heck you were for forever. Or expire in 20 years.
So I got what I call my Bible, it's put out by municipal associations, good road to travel.
That's where it
Well,
was.
welcome, that's what came from.
Yeah.
I used that for 35 years. And they keep updating it, so.
I gave them chapter 2, how our local highways created. It was either
I
dedication
thought
or
that-
acceptance.
It was pretty comprehensive. So to answer the question, we can't stop taking care of roads that are private roads.
Well, we never should, right.
It's still gonna
My roads, we absolutely can't maintain. That's why, like, neighborhood you live in,
Yeah.
those were given to the town. By your committee, by your,
I remember that, but we had to have them at least paved in order to give it to the town. Maybe not the last half a dozen you did. The last half a dozen you did.
absolutely.
But my street, for example, was dirt when we moved on there, and we had, me and my neighbors and I all got together and paid for it. But the last half a dozen roads, the town took over. The town paid to put hot top on it.
When we're talking about Tucker Road, that's an old ancient town road that's existed since the 1700s. And it's never been discontinued, so. And it's never been classified as class 5 road, just town maintained road, but we have maintained it for the 35 plus years that I've been, the 35 years I've been here, plus back to 1978 or 80, so before he started.
So it's not a paper street.
On Main Street, it's listed in the state line diagram. We actually have a class 6, and part of it really should be, if they're doing things legally, it should be reclassified to class 5. It's like plowing it, grading it, adding gravel, cut and brush, all those things that you're not supposed to do on a class 6 road. And I'll tell you, the reason why it wasn't classified as a class 6 road, class 5 road, excuse me, is because the selectmen at the time didn't want to see that road developed with another 15 or 20 houses on it, in the condition it was. It was a good decision, but that's the decision was made here.
Because if there were 15 houses down there, we'd have to pay for the road.
Oh, we are now.
Now.
You right, just because you would force the, whoever puts those houses in, the subdivision, it's off-site improvements, so you would force whoever to put the subdivision in to improve that road.
Susan, we refer this to the Hampshire Municipal Associations of the Council. To start, yes. Anybody else got anything on that? All right. Revision of right to know policy.
All I did was add in the price of copies. Tammy had a question, she wanted to tell them we're allowed to charge the cost of copies. Can't be an arbitrary number, so she figured it out which I just redid because she said the color is different. So it's gonna be 5 cents per page for black and white or 12 cents per page for color. If you're okay with that, I added it in on number 1.
Is 12 cents per page color actually cover our costs?
That's what Cindy told me, it was 7
Since
cents
you
more.
figured it out based on the amount of labor it took, the paper, the ink,
I think that, well, I would think whatever the cost is, it should be double, because what's not in there, that's the cost of printing it, not the labor involved for it.
she was trying to boost it as much as she could.
You know, that should, I would think that should at least be 20 cents a page. It just,
If you do everything in black and white, trust me, you're gonna use as much ink on filling in the black on the color as anything else.
I'm just saying that if anyone, it's their right to ask for the right to know, but it takes, if we get something that goes back to, you know, tornado pit or something, you know how much work it's gonna take to come up with all that documentation? That's not covered in the cost of the
You
copy.
pay them to find the stuff.
Law says a reasonable cost.
Reasonable cost, yes. But there's a lot of costs involved that besides the printing is my.
All I can think of is that 5 cents for photocopies in Rite Aid's window when they first moved to Carriage Town. And that was-
Really, if I said.
Yeah, I don't feel that that's, do we own that copier?
Yes.
We
Do
do?
we lease it?
Which copy?
Downstairs?
Yeah.
No, that's a lease.
Yeah, we don't know.
I'm pretty sure you pay per copy, like if I run the
Yeah.
process.
That's
black
right,
and
it's a
white,
lease.
And so like Tammy had to reset her computers because she was printing, even if it's a black and white document, if you print in color, then they charge you for color.
That's correct.
That's what should make the difference.
For maintenance purposes.
Why don't we talk to Cindy
We own
about
that.
that cost?
I don't think so, Don.
Because she told me that she rented it as much.
Yes, I gave her that.
I mean, if this is covering the lease and the administration aspect of it, then I'm fine with it.
I just find 5 cents to be,
Yeah, that seems super.
pretty low.
But that's for the copy itself.
When I was doing a research project, it was 10 cents a page back in, 4th grade at Lost Public Library.
They had copy machines?
They did.
Oh, Kevin.
Don't make me laugh, okay?
I'm not saying a word.
So,
Move the
yes, the opening was so big I had to go through
And the only other thing I'd caution everyone, if you read that email that came out from NHMA today about the proposed legislation, changes in right to know, qualified immunity, there is a lot of bad stuff that is going for Concord next week.
Yes, there
I would
is.
I'd advise you to read that NHMA email that came out. But they're changing the right to know on several different things.
Because we're all gonna resign in 2 weeks.
Well, the concern is qualified immunity. People think just pertains to police. It doesn't. It pertains to boards, volunteer boards, anybody that makes a decision.
No one's gonna wanna do a damn thing in town.
Well, I know they're lining up right now as it is.
Oh. To resign.
So, yeah, if a lot of that stuff passes, it affects your planning board, your ZBA, select board,
Is it for people who don't volunteer
fire,
locally, right?
police, affects all your agencies.
Okay.
All right. Public comment number 2. Public comment. Good.
He's on.
Correspondence. Did you speak to Torme about the intent to excavate there?
The sheets in there, that's a totally different thing. But we've got a letter, why we talk about Tormail, that says they're using their trucks before 6 o'clock.
Oh, it's starting at 6, I thought it
With
said.
all the alarms, backup alarms and everything, aren't they on the 7 o'clock start time?
I'm not certain, I have to check.
I'll check that. Because I got a thing with CJ later this week.
It's a letter from Bob Berg, right, you're referring to?
He does say in there that he would be willing to go and speak to them himself, which we always encourage people to do. Work it out amongst themselves. Take the law in your own hands. So you're speaking to CJ about that berm?
Yeah, I think they put that off because about the time they were planning on starting, all the weather got bad again.
I think it'd be helpful that we provide numbers to all of the abutters to Tormail. So they, the day before they're gonna blast, so they have a new blasting company,
Yeah.
that they at least reach out to those neighbors or whatever to inform them.
What the chief and I had talked about is creating a database similar to what we use for like people who want to receive the minutes.
I have all their emails.
For people beyond the Jericho Drive, concerned citizens that want to be aware of that.
Yeah, I haven't set it up, but we were talking about like subscribe to
And, yeah,
of a certain issue, but I have to see if I can do that on the website.
okay. We've got our junkyard applications. Everybody needs to sign these. Everybody has signed most of these. Facilities use application for ball fields.
Paul has gotten signatures. What am I trying to say? Electronic signatures on some of them. At least one of those has to come in and sign that agreement part. That's what's missing there. But we need to sign off on that front sheet that the departments have already signed. Only one of them is eligible for a fee, the one on top, baseball, wanted to assign a fee to them. and then we'll get them to come in and sign the agreement and pay. The others you just need to, they're pretty much all approved, but,
Okay, so they're not getting this until they pay.
right.
Okay, residents in industrial or commercial zone.
Basically the same 4 properties. Every year they need to reapply to have that credit for being in an industrial and commercial zone. They're assessed differently, it's not a residential zone.
Okay, so we all need to sign this?
There's that.
And you said Ken's is,
Ken's gonna get the paperwork into Susan. I spoke to him today.
okay. Also, and then we have a prorated assessment for somebody at 9A Woodland Drive.
And who's that? Who's done that?
What's that?
Who created that document?
So this is from the assessor. Recommends that the abatement be granted under section 76, semicolon 21, for prorated assessment for damaged buildings.
There's 2 different things going on. There's an abatement for the balance of the 2020, so up to April 1st. The number of days it was uninhabitable, so he'll get a credit for that, and then the assessment will be reduced for 2021. Going forward.
Wild card destroying everything.
Jesus.
All right. So, Mr. Berg, do you want to just let him know that we would encourage him to reach out to Mr. Tormeo first, and if it, or the Tormeo Industries people first, and let us know how it works out. Then we have a voluntary lot merger for the fire station property.
Did that have to go to the planning board?
It's going to planning board tomorrow night, so once you sign it, I'm gonna hand it off down. They know it's coming.
Oh, are we the owners?
It's gonna fail.
Okay. Is there any issue with me signing this?
So it's not a priority going to planning board?
Well, I'm the owner.
Did you say it?
I guess you have to sign it to apply. Okay.
Aren't you the owner?
I have the feeling it's gonna fail.
Who did we piss off?
You're right.
Still reading.
Yeah.
That's all.
Are you still reading?
What's the 4 applications for residents in an industrial and commercial zone? Did we sign that? I just didn't realize it.
Yes.
Okay, all right, never mind.
How's this going somewhere?
Take a motion on the minutes.
So moved. Can I have a second?
Second, for the minutes we talked about?
Yep.
Both of them, public and non-public.
Okay, motion and second, further discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Alessio?
Yep.
Briggs?
Yes.
Folds?
Yes.
St. James?
Yes.
And Mills.
Yes.
Anything else for the board? We do have a non-public session to deal with the employment issue. Anything else? Okay, just a couple things to remind the public. The barn easement applications are due April 15th to the Board of Selectmen. We will be reviewing the applications on the 19th. That's all I have.